jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
It takes good people to save lives, dedicated people willing to sacrifice a lot. The people of St. Elsewhere, let them share their lives with you Wednesdays.
Coming to CBS,
Massive bleeding. He just arrested. He's only 33.
a remarkable new hour of television.
This is my procedure. You'll get full credit, Doctor, I promise, especially if he dies.
Meet doctors determined to beat impossible odds.
You're the greatest surgeon I've ever known, but it's time to stop.
This is my room, damn you!
From the producer of L.A. Law, an acclaimed cast in a daring new drama.
She's 30 over 0. She wouldn't survive.
Yes, she will.
Chicago Hope this fall on CBS.
I'm back. Here we are once again. Just another fun TV drama to detail. Kind of a franchise, if you will. Talking about the one, the only St. Eliphas Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. Here with me is Karyle Alessi. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm not bad at all. I don't need to go to a hospital, that is for sure.
That's a good thing, especially staying elsewhere. You don't want to go.
Yeah, I don't want to go to this hospital, even though it's very fascinating on TV. So, just as an intro, how did you get into TV shows? Were you more of a comedy person? Were you a sci-fi or horror person? Did you like action?
Comedy. Yeah, comedy and no sci-fi, no sci-fi, no horror, nothing like that.
Okay, all good.
I like law. I like medical.
Okay, just keep it basic. Yes.
Yeah. I started, I don't know, whatever these were on in the 80s. And so I just started watching, and, you know, it takes me like a few minutes to know if I'm going to stick with it. Mm-hmm. And this series I definitely did stick with. And now if you contrast it to what's happening now, I was laughing because the doctors were wearing shorts in this show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You could smoke anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people checking out from their emergency room visit, and their bill was printed out on a dot matrix printer.
100%.
And it was $1,500, and they were upset about that.
Totally. And the fact that, I mean, you see all these actors at the beginning of their careers.
Oh, yeah.
And just how it evolved, let alone they were semi-known, but just becoming bigger as a result of this. And I love how many of them, like David Morse and Denzel Washington, became better known, and so people wanted to go back and see what they were best known for, what their folks grew up watching. But yeah, I mean, the broadcasts are so old that there are times where some of them even have kind of a tracking or little fizzle on the Hulu streaming.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting, and it's okay. It's just that's how old a show it was. And so backstory was, it was produced by Mary Tyler Moore. She, post sitcom, she had decided to form a dramatic TV studio, and Hill Street Blues was already a hit for ABC, and so this was produced for NBC. And once again, and just the whole everyone has gray morals, and mixing in drama and comedy with some fantasy, and then yeah, just non-static camera everywhere we're going. We're seeing steady cam, and at the
Yeah.
time, it still looks great, even though nowadays we're so used to it. With stuff, every other medical or crime show using it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it is interesting. And it's interesting to be able to pick that up. You have to have the eye, like you said, to see the difference between the Steadicam and the way they're doing things now.
100%. It's also great seeing other actors like Stephen Furst, post Animal House, pre Babylon 5 on here, Ernie
Yeah.
Hudson from Ghostbusters, Patricia Wiltig from 30 something, Alfred Woodar, from Cross Creek and
Yeah.
Star Trek, and Mark Harmon, before
Mark
Insidious. So,
Yep.
and we'll get to him in a minute because there's a connection here. But yeah, so this has also been highly mocked because at the end it's revealed that it's all inside the main administrator's head, and it seems like more people seem to know about it now for that versus what it was actually about. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I read that. I was surprised when I read that because I don't think I was paying that close attention back then.
Oh, totally not, because there'd just be brief lines of dialogue. And so David E. Kelly, is best known for L.A. Law and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
shows. His whole Boston set crime shows like The Practice and Legal in Public mentioned St. Eligia's Hospital. So it was interesting how, that made sense. Those were Fox productions, and the others were kind of narrow. They were just because head writer Tom Fontana just incorporated them into his shows Homicide, Life on the Street, Oz, and City on a Hill. And those get even more complicated because those also share the Law and Order universe. So you see where this
Yeah.
a little tricky. But the main direct linkage is one of the basketball players from an earlier show called The White Shadows is a recurring character on here because Bruce, director and producer Bruce Paltrow worked on both and wanted to give him some extra work. They go to the same bar as Cheers because it was on the same network, and Chicago Hope directly references it because it's also a Fox production, but also just the writers were such big fans that they decided, hey, our doctors are that good because they were trained by Dr. Craig or Dr. Westphal was their mentor. They just have a bunch of throwaway lines like that. And then when you're actually paying attention, it's like, that's awesome. And it's a shame that most of these shows, you pretty much have to find on the internet or on some streaming capacity. They have never been given a physical release due to the music rights issues.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the main that was the reason for
I think it might have been low
Yeah.
DVD sales too, because even though Denzel is a big, instant A-lister who everyone wants to see, just, I don't know, just people weren't buying as many DVDs even then, I guess. They were, but it wasn't enough, I guess, to warrant it, or maybe the studio wasn't interested. I don't know the whole thing.
Huh.
But so the cast includes director of the hospital, Dr. Westphal, played by Ed Flanders, the independent Dr. Cavanero, played by Cynthia Sykes, Dr. Morrison, who's played gently by David Morse, the horny jokester and perverted Dr. Fiscus, played by Howie Mandel, the always offensive Dr. Ehrlich, played by Ed Begley Jr.
Seriously, oh my God, he is.
Dr. Oshlander, played by the late, great Norman Lloyd, who we lost recently, so hopefully he's in a St. Elsewhere heaven somewhere, and middle-aged fearing Nurse Rosenthal, played by Christina Pickles. So, and of course, arrogant genius Dr. Craig, William Daniels. So there you go. And Dr. Chandler by Denzel Washington. So sorry, there's so many people, but yeah.
Yeah, so many. This was a huge cast, and interestingly, that these were all at the very, like you said, the beginning of their careers. It's amazing to see how far they've all come, or most of them have come.
100%. It's just very ballsy. It's very gripping. And I think, unfortunately, now a lot of shows that, whether they were inspired by this or not, kind of just get too soapy and melodramatic. And it knew how to kind of rein you into the melodrama and make it just feel like, I really do want to see this kind of explode, just this chaos erupt. It's just something about it that I just can't look away. There's something intriguing to it all. And again, it's gray, people in real life are not easy to classify, in front of or behind the curtains. So, and, this is before nowadays it's second nature to make there be an anti-hero as a gimmick of a show. But, back then, it's like, even just all the other guys, like Terrence Knox is basically having a breakdown, and you never would have suspected that his character was becoming a rapist. And all the other characters like Bruce Greenwood, he's just a guy, he just cannot stay loyal. He cannot keep it in his pants. He cannot think independently. He can't say anything sincere without just being a tool, because he just doesn't, he's good at his job, but he doesn't have any care in the world, actually. So.
And then it's Kathy, that weird Kathy who worked in the morgue. I mean, she was a wacko. She was a complete wacko.
And definitely the most tragic out of all these people. And what was her name? Shirley is also very interesting, how she basically just has no regrets. She decides to kill, the rapist.
Shirley,
and then it's so funny when she comes back, like, and prison visiting hours to, have her birthday celebrated. And she's like, nah, I don't like to be celebrated like this. There's lots of ironies in everyone's storylines.
It was also funny. We didn't yet mention Howie Mandel, but there are a lot of crossovers and homages, as you will. There was one episode in the third season where Mr. and Mrs. Craig are in bed, and she wanted to watch TV. Merv Griffin.
Yeah.
And she says she wanted to see who was on, and Craig says, probably some stupid comic. And it turns out that it was Howie Mandel.
Yeah, a lot of breaking the fourth walls. There's a great online website that is still going, is still blogging. And apparently there's a person from The White Shadow, played by one of those Van Patten brothers, who's now like a director of TV. And at one point he meets the taller, well-built former basketball player guy in the hallway, and he says, "Oh, you look like someone I know," but that was an inside joke too.
Oh, wow.
He had played a character on The White Shadow, and it's like, I see what you did. And they just can't help themselves. And I mean, Mark Harmon's on both, but he's not playing the same person. He's, on one, he's playing a doctor dying of AIDS when it was still a predicament that no one knew how to deal with. And then, on Chicago Hope, he's playing an arrogant, cynical gambler.
I didn't realize he was on Chicago Hope.
Yeah, just later seasons. And it was cool because basically he brought half the cast of Chicago Hope with him to NCIS. He would have them guest star, the most notable one being Rocky Carroll, who was playing director Vance.
Okay. So he was on Chicago Hope.
He's on all three of these shows, yeah. And
okay.
he had Christine Lothy and Jane Brooke guest star. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But I mean, those shows both share interesting predicaments because basically, they have similar elements, but you can't say they're the same person. Like, you can't say Mandy Patinkin, Dr. Geiger, who's just a weird puppeteer and ventriloquist, is the same as Howie's, Dr. Fiskus. It's not anywhere. Basically, well, or even Dr. Craig. Like, Dr. Craig is arrogant and his ego is so large, but he thinks that his wife is leaving him just because she's jealous, not because of the fact that he's an asshole,
I know he is.
It just shows you some people just can't learn. And, Ehrlich just can't get just that no one can stand to be around him unless they're a weirdo or just ego head like him. So it's just all very fascinating. And I mean, much like these David E. Kelly shows, like you were mentioning Boston Legal, those are funny because they're in on the joke that both of them are on different sides of the political argument, and they are so full of themselves and they know it and won't do anything to correct their offensive and non-appropriate workplace behavior. So this is kind of the same thing too, except, when they add the fantasy element, and it just makes you, I kind of can't even fault Fontana for setting these, because Homicide was the same way. You got a bunch of moody, overweight detectives. And then, on Oz, you had all these prisoners who you kind of feel sorry for, even though they are just scum of the earth, and in an experimental prison being picked on by other crooked guys. So, yeah, I mean, with this, it does make you wonder if a hospital like this, if it would face the same kind of fears and just the whole, I mean, everyone's had a dream where not only did they fly, but they escape their chaotic life. And they get those points across pretty well, especially when they're tempted to destroy the hospital, with the wrecking
Do you
ball.
think the if you're comparing, like, St. Elsewhere and medical show, or even the law shows, LA Law, stuff like that, from back in the 80s to what they're showing now, which do you like better?
I think this is, out of the 80s ones, this one just stands out to me compared to Hill Street Blues and Law, just because it's just got a little bit more of an edge, just a little bit more of just nutty scenarios and quotable characters, and just, and even when it's awkward and unpleasant, it just, you can't look away. It's just something is hitting the fan. And nowadays, I would say, it seemed like for a while ER was the more popular show, and it was on longer, so more hospital shows felt they had to be like that versus Hope or St. Elsewhere. And nowadays, I mean, New Amsterdam's a pretty popular one. I feel like that, and even Chicago Med, take a lot of inspiration from Hope and Elsewhere versus ER. If anything, they might have some cast and crew from ER, but that's it. Like, they're not going at all for, I mean, ER was more of a science-driven thriller, with good acting.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And this one, was kind of more of a, they're in a hospital, but it's not really a hospital show, it's just a chaotic drama with characters trying to be accepted, and some of them succeed and others are kind of failing. And it deals with some other stuff that it seems like some writers are afraid to talk about nowadays. And it's not that it's a heated topic or too current to today, but I mean, like, when Dr. Morrison gets attacked by a prisoner and it's heavily implied that he was assaulted, by the male prisoner. I mean, it's just so, gentle's not the right word, but just very reflective and cautious about just showing how is, like, people are afraid to talk about, let their wounds heal and just,
that's true. Yeah.
talk about how they've been wronged. And, in a post-Me Too society, I think we're now also just having to open up, is like, be respectful of what you say, just don't shrug it off and act like people are being, crybabies or taking it out of proportion. It goes both ways, how someone reacts versus how you said something, just, you both can put thought into this before it gets chaotic. It isn't just people being prudes and touching each other the wrong way. And so I think it was definitely ahead of the curve. It definitely allowed people to talk about mature discussions that, frankly, they didn't really want to talk about when they got home from work. They just wanted a simple, predictable storyline when they got home and put on the television.
That's true.
And this wasn't going to go there. It wasn't going to go, hey, so-and-so, you'll be great in no time. You'll be walking and riding a bike. It's like, no, they're talking about all sorts of issues. Like, Michael Madsen, of all people, from Tarantino's movies, shows up in one episode as a racist who's in a war with he's bringing his brother to the hospital because they're in a war with a black gang. And it's like, it's like something like that could still go on, where there's someone who's the violent of gang violence or the victim of abuse.
And how about Tim Robbins?
Yeah, Tim Robbins. I've never other than Arlington Road, I've never seen him play a terrorist before. I've never seen him play a guy just like you. How ironic! The people I blew up, you can't save, but you can save me. And I mean, definitely when he gets killed by one of those security guards who just who's like, that's chief of security, who decides, you know what, I'll gladly go to prison just to kill you.
Wasn't he killed by the husband of?
Oh, my bad. Yes, I'm totally misremembering it. The security guards try to stop him, and the husband of one of the victims decides, I'm willing to go to jail just to make sure this guy does not get treated anymore.
I thought that was quite a role for him. I mean,
and Kathy Bates, and she guest stars like 2 different times. One time is like a person who's, I forget what it was. It was like dealing with weight issues, and like in the other one, she's dealing again just with Tourette's, and Morrison is having.
I remember that one.
And he's having to remind everyone. It's like, hey, it's not personal. She can't help it. You know, you got to stop. Just separate your mind. Just go back to generic doctor, where you are here to help.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, if you look back, some of the ones we didn't even mention, there's just so many.
Ronnie Cox as a bureaucrat who just thinks, hey, you know, you guys are spoiled. You don't want to work. You're going to do exactly what I say. And it's like, no, we're not going to do anything we want you to say. And that's still true today. I mean, we're post-COVID. We still got states who are acting like people are lazy and just want an excuse to slack off at home. It's like, no, they really can't work. They got kids. They got busy schedules. They got health, you know, struggles.
It is. Yeah.
And I mean, they do, like you say, they do throw in a bunch of other satire, and it never feels just random. It does feel very well thought out. And much like you said, just what they're watching on TV is pretty much shadowing stuff that the actors were best known for, or just kind of what the characters would rather be doing with their time. It is kind of just a lot of fun to just see where it goes. And it pretty much invited the free roaming, because you never, it was just very well done surprises as opposed to just feeling like they made it up on the fly. But
definitely and the characters were quirky, and they were sweet, and they were, you know, mean, or they were egotistical, but they meshed real well. I mean, they really all meshed very well together. So
well. And Chicago Hope, I mean, if you've seen any of it, you can still watch most of the episodes on Daily Motion and YouTube, fortunately, unless you want to buy a Region 3 player and buy it on a Region 2 DVD, but from the UK. But yeah, I don't know why it's been ignored also, but it premiered a week before ER, and it kind of was always kind of the loser to ER for whatever reason. And
I did Chicago Hope. Are you saying?
Yeah, Chicago Hope. Yeah.
Okay. I never saw that show. I never saw that.
Me neither. I would always hear about it, and there just was no way to watch it. Like, and I know my mother would watch it back in the day. She just found the characters just very visual, much like St. Elsewhere. And it was one of those. It was before we had VCR. We were setting the tapes to record, so she had to just pretty much just race against time, get home, and it's on. You know, and it was a pretty solid hit for CBS. And unfortunately, that last episode kind of left a lot in the air. Like, they kind of pre-canceled it due to just low ratings, but it was a cool 6 years, much like this, because same kind of deal, where it's just like just very just unusual quirks. And I wasn't surprised for them to even bring for Kelly to bring in a lot of his same characters from LA Law just onto there. And I think, like you say, movies and shows are just more and more inspired by just have characters basically just kind of lose their minds and have an internal kind of struggle.
Yeah. And David E. Kelly, he's always been one of my favorites, because I've liked, you know, most of his shows.
Totally. And I mean, he was trained by Stephen Bochco, and you despite all the 100%, and despite all the over-the-top moments in his shows, you've never heard anyone say, hey, we were treated pretty unfairly on that show. Mm-hmm. But it's like, he's pretty good at just, I think it just helps. He's just very gifted with just having uncanny drama and just nutty comedy, and just have it complement each other. It's an instant crowd pleaser.
Definitely. I agree with that.
And I mean, you even look at his few times he's done movies, like Lake Placid is, you know, technically a creature feature, but it's just also making fun of various people coming from out of town and not getting along.
I'll have to check that one out.
What's the other one? From the Hip was a wacky legal comedy with Judd Nelson that still gets even referenced on occasional shows, including Psych of all things. So, yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, that was a good show. That was good.
Oh yeah, totally. Psych, I think, is definitely probably the next category of where comedy shows are trying to be like. Because for a while, it seemed like they wanted to just do kind of mockumentary, and I think since there's so many of those now, I guess the formula now is just have very wacky characters with something only you could come up with. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now
Man.
I watched when I got hooked on Boston Legal. I didn't realize that James Spader's character started in the last season.
Absolutely, I introduced my mother to that earlier last year. I was doing the practice. She's like, "Wait, are they playing the same person?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is where they started, and they were so popular that." And they won Emmys that last final year. Is like, we can't not bring them back.
And it was a great crossover. It was great the way they brought him over. It was
totally. I don't think you could do that now.
Awesome the way he went out too.
100%, because it's like, and they were just forced into a bind. Just when the network takes away half your budget, what do? And I think, I mean, they did that with Hope as well, where they just had the characters, they wrote it in. Okay, this season they're getting fired, but they fight a big legal battle for like 3 episodes. And same kind of deal with the practice. Like, everyone's gone on to all their whole different routes. Let's say, let's introduce Spader's Alan Shore and have him be a new disruption, and we'll be creative with what we do from that point on. And I mean, it really just became a dark comedy, so it just made sense for them to continue it as a whole different batch. But yeah, like you say, I mean, any other show is kind of, anytime they switched out the people, just many other viewers would just tune out because there's just too many cast changes. It doesn't feel.
Yeah.
And that just worked in its favor because it's like, well, we got new blood, but it's just fascinating enough. We're going to stick with it and see where it goes. And yeah, elsewhere, I mean, pretty much the people who left, they pretty much were written that way, especially the actions they do. But it is interesting how you think Dr. Craig is being replaced, and he's still working with the Vietnamese doctor who he's a bigot towards. And then,
oh my God, yes,
what a dick. And I mean, some of the ones I can understand why they left. They just creatively disagreed. Like Cynthia Sykes. Apparently, I think the rumor was that her character was going to be revealed as closeted, and she's just like, yeah, nothing against that. I just disagree with the trajectory of that character. I think she would be more like this or that. So I'm going to just not renew my contract for this year. But,
okay. Interesting.
But I mean, they pretty much had a bunch of the other gals. I think Donna was her name, or somebody who's hanging out with Bruce Greenwood's character. But yeah, this is like they pretty much all take each other's place without making you forget about them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so wild.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that they did deal with a lot of difficult storylines, like breast cancer and AIDS, like you mentioned, and addiction and.
So true about the cancer is like, because I don't was there any shows that talked about that? I don't think.
Not the way this one. I mean, Christina Pickles, when she had breast cancer and she had the mastectomy,
even to have a supervisor getting a cancer treatment, that's.
Yeah.
Auslander is always just coughing when he's not cool and smug and giving wise advice. He's pretty much just huddled up and shivering. It's like, God, that's so painful to watch.
Yeah, he was so cute. I liked him. I liked him a lot. And Westfall. Craig, of course, my least favorite of those 3.
Very well played, but God, yeah. Having been a fan of Boy Meets World growing up, it was very hard to watch. It was like, he's not the. I mean, he's even done just other kind of voice cameos, kind of like that. Everyone kind of also knows him as the voice of Kid on that campy show Knight Rider, but he does a voice of a robotic doctor on one of those Star Trek shows. So
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know.
It's a blink and you miss, and you're like, wait, that sounds like that is William.
That's cool.
Totally.
But yeah, you and I got to wondering about the character. There was a character mentioned in St. Elsewhere that was also
yes,
in the West Wing.
Yep,
And,
that there's a politician named Bartlett, and we just can't help but wonder, was Aaron Sorkin watching it that day and said, "That's right," swear.
Yeah, I mean that I couldn't find any like real link to it.
Even
You
just
know?
mild actors who have been on both shows is like, it just
Yeah.
makes you wish it could share that universe, because it's a big universe it shares now. And I think it's kind of unheard of, because nowadays, there's rights issues and everything, but I guess they just were able to get away with it. They're just like, yep, this is something fun to do.
This was fun. This was a really good series, St. Elsewhere. I really did enjoy it. And
Why do you think everyone violently reacts to how it ends nowadays?
well, I'll be honest, I had forgotten about that part. I didn't remember.
It kind of leaves it open-ended, as opposed to you must accept it this
Yeah.
way. I mean, I'm not surprised that it went there. When you hear about it at first glance, you're like, that sounds like something dumb they might do on something like The Sopranos or Lost nowadays. It's like, no, it's kind of more, I mean, it kind of does make sense, I think, because they're always constantly having dreams or weird nightmares. So, I mean, if anything, it happened in his son's head, if not his head,
But it seems, when they do stuff like that, to me, if you don't tie a series up satisfactorily,
it can pretty much ruin it all. Yeah.
yeah, and for this to have been a dream, in Tommy's mind, just doesn't seem like it would do the show justice. Just like other shows have been ridiculed for the same thing.
I guess it goes by so fast, you kind of just don't soak it up right away. So, and by that point, I think it was already kind of getting lower in the ratings, so they had to tie it up anyway. So,
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'm gonna have to watch that last episode though.
And it's kind of wild. I'm really surprised that it hasn't been replayed all that much on TV, other than Nick at Night. And Nick at Night, I can't see them playing it nowadays. Now it's it's got to be classic sitcoms. This can't be something this grim or moody.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that would work. But it's on Hulu.
Totally. I can't think of any third-party site where you could buy all these recordings. Pretty much that's where you got to go to. And I don't think they'll take it down anytime soon. I think because, Disney bought Fox, basically that's what they're stuck with, is just like anything that's not, Disney appropriate, the rest of the Fox catalog can remain on Hulu, because, that they co-own the site with Universal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, if you want people to stop bootlegging or trafficking your material, you got to offer it in some kind of digital platform, because people aren't buying physical media as much. And, it still is an awesome show that many people have sung praise about, that they want everyone to check out. So it's like, yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
Otherwise it collects dust in the vault. So.
And that's a shame, because it really was entertaining. It was easy to get to feel it,
To tune in once a week.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you say, nowadays DVDs are mocked, but at the time they were not only groundbreaking, but they were encouraging studios to take pride in their work and remaster the reels and digitally, update the sound and everything. And sometimes they'd have extended scenes even for TV shows and special features, and they kind of just don't do that now. Now it's got to be, you can buy it digitally, or you can buy a really cheap DVD or Blu-ray of it for TV shows.
Yeah, it has changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit. But it was fun, to go back and watch some of these shows that were popular when I was younger. Because I don't watch much now of the new shows. I stopped watching, like, Grey's Anatomy after the first, I don't know, season or so. And
It's too much.
It is. It's too soap opera. It's not like these kinds of situations in St. Elsewhere. It's just more about, soap opera and love and romance, and
I have fun with Chicago Fire because it's often there. It's kind of also got some mystery to it. So it's like, okay, so even if I'm going to predict what they're going to say, there's still going to be like some other character drama that I didn't see unfolding. And it's like, okay, so that's enough to come back as opposed to watch various fire stunts.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I haven't watched any of those newer shows.
We were able to review it, and we were just like
spoiled with Netflix, and
it's
no
hard not to
commercials.
be because it's just easier. It's easier to get into a show that way, and if you don't like it, you can stop it, midway there, as opposed to a movie where it's like, well, I can either walk out of the theater, and not see what happens and waste $20.
Yep. I can't stand this because now there's like 8 minutes of commercials. At least on Hulu or some of these other streaming ones.
Oh yeah,
3 minutes. Most.
Totally. I went commercial free on Hulu because it was pretty bad one year, but it's gotten better. But Peacock seems to vary, so I'm just like, okay, just maybe do one trial. But yeah, the other services have wisely just said we'll charge you a bunch, but it's all commercial free, like HBO Max. So if you want to watch West Wing, there, anything.
That's where I'm watching it. Yeah. And that's one of those shows that I'll watch it, finish it. Most of the time, then I'll watch the newsroom, and then I end up going back to the West Wing. There's just something about the show that I just really, really like.
100%. Once a year kind of deal. That's how I was with the Star Trek shows. That's how I am with 24 even. Just like every once in a while, just put something up and get ready for nonstop mystery.
Yep.
But yeah, West Wing is similar kind of deal. There's just enough characters, and it's been talked about so much. It's going to keep finding some kind of giant fan base.
It should. It's good. But it's funny because like some of these older shows, like I tried watching L.A. Law. I think it was L.A. Law recently, or one of those shows, and I just couldn't.
Didn't hold up as much. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like no. So,
but some of those had hit and miss seasons. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah. But St. Elsewhere never disappoints.
Yeah, even with the ending that scratches your head, you're just like, yeah, I can kind of see where they just went. Because, I mean, there's just so much other stuff to consume that any stuff you don't like, there's very few episodes where I'm like, I kind of want to skip this one. It's just too weird. But it's kind of the right kind of odd, which in that you just want to, something has made, it's left its mark if, the title location is as much a mystery as the characters. So it's like, yeah, it's like you're going onto some kind of sacred ground that you shouldn't be going onto, but you the viewer or the voyeur, and you're just watching in on it. It's like,
that's a great way of putting it.
I don't know how else to explain it. It's like, 'cause everything else is pretty much, unfortunately, just too built around cast and crew involvement versus the substance, and that just gets old after a while. It's like, okay, well, eventually they're going to leave the show and it's going to go downhill. It's just, you need more to your gimmick, I think.
Yes, I agree with that.
Thank you ever so much for being on here. This was a fun conversation.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anything you want to promote in any way, shape, or form?
No, not really. I just,
okay.
I mean, I like a lot of different shows. I do like anyone who hasn't seen Dead to Me. Or,
yes. So still got to see that.
That is so good. And Afterlife. Oh my God. That is the best show. It's Ricky Gervais.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There were a couple of episodes in the second season that, were hit or miss, but I'll tell you, on the whole, that was a wonderful show.
It's very interesting seeing him do more drama now, kind of like he did with Derek, where it's just like, again, comedians can be really good, dramatically rewarding artists once in a while.
Yeah, he had me in tears. He had me. I mean, he was so good, and I think that should be rewarded. I think everybody should watch that.
100%.
But so hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, totally. Well, I'll definitely schedule some more chats with you. Well,
thank you so much.
100%.
Take care.
Totally.
We'll return after these messages.
JRS Podcast is proud to promote AutoCorrect, an independent film company with experienced industry professionals who can serve all your film industry needs. They include self-tapes, voice actor recordings, demo reel editing, script revisions, headshots, and much more. They're Actor Correct at your request. Book them on Instagram.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of her.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was
How
going to be a
did you
rough
watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey. And I'm Zach. And we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
Greetings, friends. My name is Dean Legero, and I'm the host of the 3324 podcast. I invite you to join me and my lifelong friend Eric Kuber to come with us as we discuss the music and movies that shaped our life. Each week, we'll pick an album or film that we really connect to, and not only give you some great info and trivia, but also discuss, debate, and celebrate what it means to us and the journey it took us on. We also look forward to hearing from you and giving us some of your picks for us to check out and discuss. I think it'll be a really fun experience, so come along with us for the ride. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider and at 3324.buzzsprout.com. Thanks for your time, and welcome to the 3324 family.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from We're the one last plot holes of gratuitous movies. It's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up